Hey y'all, I've been missing y'all at church. We've been busy trying to keep y'all entertained, so I made you a little video of our Sunday school lesson. So this is for Addie and Ella and Adeline and Kason and Colin and Chris and Chaz and my two boys, Josiah and Malachi, and the Rayburn kids, Abby, Wyatt, Michael. Anybody I left off, it's for everybody, okay? So, in my class, we've been studying about Samuel, Elisha, and Elijah. Well, that's not what we're going to talk about today. We finished talking about that story the other day. So, we are going to talk about Moses, the life of Moses. Moses is a very great man of God that was in the Bible. So, I'm going to tell y'all about how Moses got started. We're going to learn about Moses today. And I got some picture flashcards for you, so it should make it a little bit more entertaining. All right? So I miss all of y'all. I just want to tell you that. I'm going to try to put a couple more videos up later on. I hate doing this, but I miss y'all, and I want y'all to have some Bible too. All right? So let's learn about Moses. So back when Pharaoh it was in Egypt, and Pharaoh there was a lot of Hebrews. Remember we talked about Israel, about being God's people. Well, God had a lot of people, and they were in Egypt, and they had become so many, and there were so many people that Pharaoh got to looking around, and he was like, man, there is more Hebrews, more people of God than there is of us. And if we were to go to war, they would all join up and fight against us, and we would be overtaken. So we have to get rid of some of these Hebrews. So he went down there, and he put the Hebrews into slavery. When slavery is where, see, you got the Hebrew guys, and slavery is when they would be forced to do really hard work and really hard things, and God would take them, just like in this picture right here. God, not God, excuse me. The people, the Egyptians would come, and they would whip them, and they would torture them. They do whatever they could and make them work hard labor. They wouldn't let them rest. They wouldn't let them sit. From sun up to sundown, they would have to work. But worst of all, they wouldn't even get paid for their work. When you go out and you work a job, you expect to get paid for it and live. But they didn't get that privilege. They were doing it as slavery. Pharaoh's object was to make their life very hard. He did not like God. He did not like the people of God. God's people have always been, Satan has always been trying to get God's people. And so that's what happened. He put them all in slavery, and they were under bondage. But not only was that the case, Pharaoh was worried about babies being born. So Pharaoh said, I've got a new rule. Any baby that's born, we are going to kill. Any baby boy that's born, you're going to throw him into the river, and he's going to drown, and he's going to die. So any new baby that's born, if it's a Hebrew, has to be thrown into the river and killed. And so the soldiers were coming around to houses and getting people's babies. It was an awful time. Can you imagine how scared and how sad it was? I couldn't even imagine having my baby taken from me and thrown into the water. But that's exactly what he did, because he did not like God's people. Well, there was a Hebrew family, Jochebed, Aham, and they had an older daughter named Miriam. And then they had another son named Aaron, and they had a brand new baby boy. And then the law was passed that they had to throw them all into the river. Well, they didn't want to throw their baby into the river. And they knew God, and they knew that he had a special plan for them. And they said, we've got to save our baby. God has a special plan for this baby. We've got to save our baby. How can we save our baby? So they tried to hide Moses, and they hid him in their house for 3 months. Can you imagine how hard that was to hide a baby? Because what do babies do? They cry, and they cry a lot. So I couldn't imagine how scared he was and how scared they were every time the soldiers would come near. But they hid him for 3 months. And finally they said, he's getting so big and so loud, we can't hide him anymore. We're going to have to put him in the river. So what we're going to do, they found a plan. They said, we're going to go gather a bunch of weeds, like, the reeds that are in the thing is called bulrush, that are in the water. They took them, and they made them into like this little boat, a little bitty boat. Then they put this tar in it, which is like the stuff that you see on the road, and they put this thick, gooey stuff in it, and it hardened. And they said, now it won't sink. Now it'll be like a boat. And so the next morning, early in the morning, they went out to the river. And you see the little bulrush that they made for baby? And they put the baby in the boat. And they took him, and see the mama over there watching, and little Miriam put him into the water. They said, this is what we're going to have to do, and we're just going to have to trust God that he knows what's going on. We're going to have to trust him that he knows what's best. And they prayed over that baby, and they put him in the river, and they trusted God. And so the mama went back to the house, probably pretty upset. I imagine she would be pretty upset. And when they did that, then she let Miriam, she said, Miriam, I want you to stay behind. So Miriam stayed behind and went and hid behind the thing because she wanted to see what would happen to baby Moses. It was her baby brother. She wanted to know what would happen. So they went to the river, and Pharaoh, remember Pharaoh is that evil king. He had a daughter that was a princess, and she went down to the river because they didn't have bathtubs and showers like we have. They had to go down to the river to bathe. So she went down with all her little maids. See her little maids behind her? She went down to the river, and she said, oh my goodness, bring me that. And she saw Moses floating in there. She didn't know a baby was in it. She said, bring it to me. Let me see what's in it. So they brought it to her, and she opened it up, and she saw a baby. And she said, this must be one of the Hebrew babies that they had to put into the river. So she felt sad for the baby, and she's like, I'm going to take him, and he's going to be my very own. Do you see little Miriam over here looking at it, watching what's happening? They don't know she's there, and she's listening, and she says, I'm going to take him and raise him as my very own. And so Miriam, God gave Miriam an idea, which is the baby's sister, and she popped out of the water real quick, and she ran to the fair, and she said, I can go find one of those Hebrew women that can nurse and feed your baby for you, if you'd like me to. Because she couldn't feed the baby. She wasn't the mama to the baby. So she said, go do that. So Miriam ran as quick as she could to go see her mama. And she said, Mama, you got to come quick. You got to come quick. Miriam, the princess, is getting the baby. And she's going to take it and raise it as her own. And she needs a Hebrew woman to feed the baby. And I told her I'd come get you. So she went and got her mama. And her mama comes. Now, here's the baby's mama that put this baby into the river because she knew that she had to. And she trusted God's plan. And here is the woman, the princess, that has this baby. And she said, I'm going to give him to you to feed. And so they got to keep the baby and feed him and raise him when he was a little bitty boy. And then once he got to be a toddler and didn't have to have milk no more and could eat food, they would give him back to the princess. So here she is, thinking that she had to put Moses into the river to die, and God spared her and spared the baby. And now she was getting paid. They paid her to keep up with her own baby and to feed her own baby. But one day, when the baby was old enough to eat on his own, she had to give him back to the princess. But when she had Moses, I imagine she taught the baby about God, because she knew that Pharaoh wasn't going to teach him about God. She knew that Pharaoh didn't love God. And she had to install some stuff in this baby that would love God and would do things for God when he was older. So she took this baby, and she really prayed over him, I'm sure, and sang him songs, let him know that God was real and that God was alive and God was going to do something great with Israel. She just didn't know what with God's people. But there came a day that she had to give him back to the prince. I imagine it was pretty hard, but she knew that God was still in control. God had showed himself mighty. And that day, the princess named the baby Moses, which means drawn out of the water. She got him out of the water. Little did they know that Moses, when he got older, which we're going to learn about in the next couple of weeks, Moses would end up saving God's people and getting them out of Egypt and getting them out of slavery. That God had set Moses in charge. This little bitty boy, God had a plan for him, that he was going to bring God's people out of Egypt. And Moses didn't know that. Miriam didn't know it. His mama, Jochebed, didn't know it. The princess sure didn't know it. But God knew it, because God had a plan. So sometimes in life, when we don't think we know what we're doing and we don't feel like life's going the way we want it to, God's still in control. And God knows what's going on, just like he did with Moses. And he's going to take care of you, and he's going to take care of me, just like he did with Moses. So that's our lesson today on little baby Moses. I've got some questions for you, like I always do at the end of my lesson. So I'm going to let you answer it. And in my class, if you answer a question right, you get a piece of candy. So if you answer this question right, you go to your mama and you tell her that Miss Melissa said to give you a piece of candy because you got the question right, okay? So here's the first question. What did Pharaoh have done to all the Hebrew baby boys? When they were born, what did Pharaoh say is going to happen to all the baby boys? Then number 2, who stayed by the river to watch the little baby when they put him into there? Who stayed behind and watched? Then, who found the basket hidden in the bulrushes? Who found that basket with the baby in it? Who was the person who found the baby? And then number 4, who did Miriam get to nurse the baby? Who did she go and get to take care of the baby for the princess? And last question, what did the princess name the baby? So, if you've listened and you've answered your question good, you've earned a piece of candy, and I can't wait to see y'all again soon. I'm going to try to make some more videos in the next couple of days so we can catch back up since we've been missing Sunday school. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed your story, and I miss you guys, love you, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye.